Watch yourself, Joe. You're on Datadyne property now. Our employer wants you to break in, undetected.
Perfect Dark Zero is one of the most highly anticipated games in the Xbox 360 launch lineup, but it's tempting to talk all about why that is rather than to focus on why this is just an outstanding first-person shooter in a game that's going to belong in just about everyone's first batch of Xbox 360 titles. You've got the inevitable comparisons between this game and Halo for the original Xbox, and there's also the fact that Rare has been working on this game for years and years, and how it's the sequel to a highly anticipated Nintendo 64 game and all that. But leaving all that aside, Perfect Dark Zero is just one of the best first-person shooters of the year, and it does everything that first-person shooters attempt to do extremely well. You don't need to be familiar with the original Perfect Dark game to appreciate this game. It plays a lot like other first-person shooters out there, and for the most part it doesn't do anything totally out of the ordinary for a first-person shooter, but what it does do is it takes every aspect of this genre and it just applies it extremely well and just has a bunch of great-looking weapons, outstanding graphics, terrific sound, and lots and lots of different features, both in the single-player and in the multiplayer modes. In the game, you play as Joanna Dark, who's a bounty hunter working with her father. They end up going up against this megalomaniacal business mogul type person, and it's really just an excuse to send them all around the world into international hotspots, fighting heavily armed guards and using a bunch of cool weapons. The story is told through mission briefing voiceover and also through occasional cutscenes during actual gameplay, but these cutscenes don't look all that great, and the story itself makes it kind of hard to care about all the different characters. Instead, you'll just care about the shooting action itself. What Perfect Dark Zero does extremely well is just nail the overall look and feel of the different weapons in the game. The game is set in the early 21st century, so that gave the designers license to include a lot of familiar-looking weapons, but also to kind of tweak them out with a bunch of surprising powers. And on top of that, you've also got some really cool high-tech weapons in the game. These weapons just look outstandingly real, and they sound terrific as well. It's just a lot of fun to use all these different firearms, and you feel like you can just kind of reach out and pull them out of the screen. I mean, these are some incredibly detailed weapon models, and the game makes it a lot of fun to play around with them. They've all got multiple functions. They don't just point and shoot. They've got scopes and silencers and flashlights and all kinds of crazy alternate vision modes and grenade launchers, you name it. And even early on, you start out with a pistol that seems extremely strong, but the game just keeps going from there and giving you better and better hardware. Eventually, you've got more weapons to deal with than you can possibly imagine, and it'll just come down to your personal preference as to which ones you want to bring to bear. Even if you've played a ton of other first-person shooters, you're going to see Perfect Dark Zero pull off a whole bunch of visual effects like you've never seen before. This is just a really graphically stunning game for the most part. There are a few things that are kind of ugly about it, like some of the characters do look a little nasty when you get right up close to them, but when you're just running and gunning, the game looks absolutely amazing and has this really great motion blur effect whenever you turn sharply, and just outstanding lighting and explosions, and again, the weapon models look incredibly lifelike. Plus, you've just got fantastic animations on the enemies that you're shooting. Pretty much no matter where you shoot them, you'll see them respond realistically, so whether you plug the guy in the foot or in the hand or in the back, square in the chest, wherever, you'll see a realistic reaction, and it really helps give you the feel that you're packing these powerful weapons. The other thing is the environments in the game just feel really huge, and there's a lot going on in them. One of the really cool touches is that you'll notice enemy corpses never fade away, so sometimes you'll have these great big firefights and all that's left is just ruin, all these bodies laying around, bullet holes in the walls, pieces of armor broken off from people, so you really feel like a lot of carnage ensued just where you fought. From a gameplay standpoint, although this is largely a conventional shooter, the game does do some interesting stuff. You can't carry every single weapon that you find. Instead, you have to balance kind of the size and what you want. So you could carry a few pistols, but only one heavy machine gun, for example. The gameplay walks pretty much a perfect balance between run and gun and more realistic tactical shooting. So if you prefer to get in there and mix it up with a shotgun or magnums, you can do that, but you could also hang back and snipe at targets and so forth. Otherwise, the game plays pretty conventionally, but it does give you some interesting tactical options. For example, you can execute these quick dive maneuvers to get out of harm's way, but you have to be careful because you take more damage if you're hit while you're rolling. Also, you could take cover behind pretty much any obstacle, allowing you to keep a low profile as you snipe at targets and basically stay safe while dozens of guys are shooting at you. These are nice little options. They're not forced upon you, but they're helpful to have, and they're useful both in single player and in multiplayer. Perfect Dark Zero offers a good-sized single-player campaign that'll take you a dozen hours or so to play through. On top of that, you can play the whole thing through cooperatively, either in a split screen or via Xbox Live as well, and the co-op mode is definitely one of the best parts of the game. It doesn't just throw two different versions of Joanna Dark in there. Instead, player 2 takes control of some other character that's contextual to the mission, so you might both start off in totally different areas and be forced to meet up somewhere along the way and stuff like that. In all, the co-op is just a whole ton of fun. Perfect Dark Zero also offers a combat arena mode where most of the standard multiplayer options are. These are divided up into what's called the Deathmatch and the Dark Ops variants. And Deathmatch contains your standard kind of run and gun, free-for-all modes, as well as capture the flag in a territories type game where you have to fight over certain positions on the map. Meanwhile, the Dark Ops modes resemble Counter-Strike in that you've got kind of a buy phase where you get to outfit yourself with whatever weapons you want. These are all team-based modes, and you can only play them with other human players, whereas the other modes you could play against bots as well. All in all, the game's got just a ton of different multiplayer stuff to play around with. You could set all the different types of match parameters that you want and different map types, customize the weapons. There's a lot to keep you busy here. If you're still on the fence about whether or not you want to get an Xbox 360, Perfect Dark Zero might just be the ticket that's going to tip you over the fence and make you want to get this system. This is definitely one of those games where just looking at it, just playing it, right away you can tell that you can't get this experience anywhere else besides this system. It's a really impressive game in any number of ways, just both from a visual standpoint and its music, pretty much every aspect of its presentation, as well as just the sheer variety of different modes that it packs in. What it boils down to is, if you're a fan of first-person shooters, you absolutely need to check this game out. And if you're planning on getting an Xbox 360, then you owe it to yourself to put Perfect Dark Zero in your starting lineup.